So yeah, I think Allison has 7 or 8 slides. We have about 55. We're going to power through them. Sam and I are going to see how we can put this together. So just very quickly, and I really appreciate that Allison went ahead of me because she helped set some of the big picture issues and trends that are going on right now in the field of social innovation. I'm going to be much more narrow in scope. I'm going to focus specifically on shared space as a specific model, and I'm going to use our space as an example, but we'll no doubt elicit some thinking and trends that apply to other spaces. So I'm going to very quickly take us through the what, how, why. So starting with what is the Center for Social Innovation? So first and foremost, we are a shared space. The model is quite simple. We rent space. We co-locate people and organizations that are working on social change projects. We've got 2 sites, a total of 300 member organizations and projects within 65 offices, 85 permanent desks, and 160 of what we call our hot desks, which are our part-time spaces. Our 300 members include nonprofits. They also include social enterprises, as well as individual social entrepreneurs, artists, activists. And we try to create this dynamic, collaborative environment where they can share ideas, spark innovation, and we'll take you through some of those stats as well. Our total is 60,000 square feet right now. We have a 3rd site that will open next year in Regent Park, which is Canada's largest public housing community that's undergoing a massive revitalization. So this is an effort for us to break our model. It's kind of in a downtown hip part of Toronto and bring it into a community with very high levels of immigration and a relatively low socioeconomic need average. We're also a community center, so we're home to all sorts of other events as well. We see about 20,000 annual visitors and 1,000 annual meetings and events, and all of those programs are happening literally on a day-by-day basis. And so in addition to supporting our own member, we become a hub for people interested in social change issues in the city of Toronto. The final thing that we are is we're an incubator. So in addition to playing the community center role or supporting shared space, we take a select number of projects under our wing and we actually try to grow them and play a more proactive or dedicated role. These are examples of some of the projects that are under our wing. And there are, collectively, they generate about 1.8 million in revenue over the last little while. And one of the benefits there is we can prevent those organizations from having to incorporate. There are 160,000 nonprofits and charities in Canada, and I don't think it's the number of nonprofits that are really the key to our social challenges. It's about more efficient, effective use of the resources and the organizations that already exist. So how do we do it? The first model, so this is our first space. We occupy a 5th of this building. It's owned by Urban Space Property Group, which is one of the very few progressive developers in the city of Toronto. I don't know, has anybody here been to the Center for Social Innovation? Okay, so a few people. And I'll show pictures because I can talk till I'm blue in the face, and I will, but it's a really big difference to actually being there. So the first model is very simple. We pay the landlord rent every month, and then we take the space, we chop it up into smaller spaces, and the difference between what we generate in revenue and what we pay to the landlord is what covers our operating costs. So we are a nonprofit organization, but we are self-sustaining. So we don't require any external sources of funding from any government bodies or foundations. Initially we did. It took us time to get to the point of self-sustainability, about 3 or 4 years. And occasionally we still go after grants for specific projects, but the core operations are self-sustaining, and that's been a priority for us as an organization because, I mean, it's kind of the holy grail of the nonprofit sector to actually get to that point, but it protects us and allows us to call our own shots. Gives us quite a lot of freedom. In the second case, we bought a building, 720 Bathurst Street. I'm not going to go into much detail, just very briefly. We raised the money required for this through community bonds. So we sold investments in this building. People invested between $10,000 and $100,000 in this building, and they're getting a financial return on their investment. So it's not a donation. Because we are a social enterprise, we're able to give them a financial return on their investments. And we became the first nonprofit in Canada to develop a community bond concept, to sell an interest in a property. And what was quite novel about it was that it was an RRSP eligible investment, which meant that if you had existing RSPs, you could just direct those funds to this building. And that was really quite extraordinary, which I can say because I didn't have anything to do with actually putting the deal together. But I will, we are in the process of documenting this model and so in September, we'll have a booklet and a series of online resources to help other nonprofits across the country benefit from that practice and take us further. So that space, the real issue though is not just generating space, but supporting community. So how do we design for community? You know, it's often lost. People kind of figure, well, let's build a space and we'll bring people together and the rest will sort itself out. That's absolutely not the case. It takes a lot of dedicated attention, conscientiousness, and it begins with physical design. So things like chalkboards that we have, photo walls you can't really see, but pictures of different members. This is a table. You know, why am I showing you the table? It's because it's in our main reception space, and you can't eat lunch alone at a harvest table. It's just not an option. People are going to sit beside you and you're going to have that conversation. So it's consciously thinking about what in the physical design, where do we put the photocopier, where do we use glass, how do we create a sense of community, and how do we begin that right at the point of physical space design. The next part we play is animation. So our staff team, we have staff whose role are community animators. And we always say a successful shared space takes equal parts administration and animation. So you need the budget to work, you need the photocopy, you need the internet, but you also need somebody who's enlivening the community. And so we have things like Weekly Salad Club, which is just a shared lunch for people to get together and have a talk. This is a picture from the annual Cookies and Cocktails Smackdown that happens in December as a special event. But really more frequently, it's not about the special events, it's just about the day-to-day behavior of listening to the members, engaging the members, and giving them a voice in the co-creation of the experience of being in the Center for Social Innovation community. So why? Why do we do it? What are the outputs? You know, what's the whole reason for doing what we do? So the very first thing is, by being a member of the Center for Social Innovation, we allow you to focus on your mission. 75% of the nonprofit sector has budgets of $250,000 or less, 4 fewer staff. And when the internet breaks down, it's the executive director or program director who's on the phone with Bell trying to resolve this issue for 4 hours. So, nods, right? So, our staff are responsible for infrastructure. We look after the photocopier, the internet, meeting spaces, kitchen facilities, so that you can focus on the mission, which is a priority for your work. 70% of our members report that CSI has enabled them to do their job more effectively. Second, networking, a dark picture here, but we know where good ideas come from. We know that people need to develop their personal and professional networks to be more efficient and more effective in the work that they're doing. 92% of our members report that CSI has expanded their professional network. And then I think also the stat is something like 82% report that it has expanded their personal networks. We have this habit of pretending we're not really full human beings in our work environment, but these issues of happiness and personal well-being factor in, as I'll talk about in a moment. 86% CSI has enabled me to exchange ideas with other social innovators. So where do ideas come from? They often come from conversations. Those conversations happen much less frequently through formal exchanges or meetings. They really do happen around a coffee table, pot, around a lunch table. That's really where serendipity emerges, is when you are just there, casual, making friends, making contacts, and we kind of see what percolates and what emerges. Working together, another core reason for being at the Center for Social Innovation, and we've got 85% of our members reporting that they have collaborated with at least one other member. And we've got groups that are basically building their entire businesses or networks with other members. We have an intranet now that links everybody electronically and really helps facilitate connectivity between the members. 2 more to go. Financial sustainability. 60%. CSI has enabled my organization to generate more revenue. And that can be a function for our for-profits and our social enterprise through the sales of goods and services. It can also mean access to funders. The CSI Center for Social Innovation brand carries some weight, and so by being part of a larger location facility, there are funders who are interested in supporting that because they recognize all of the ancillary benefits of being part of a community like that. And then, as I mentioned, personal well-being, something we don't often talk about. 76% say working at CSI has made me a happier person, which, despite all the rest of the great stats, is probably the one that we're most proud of and we're in some ways most surprised by. But you feel that if you've been in this space, too many of us, I know too many of you and me previously, work in substandard spaces or in isolation from other people, and we've got fluorescent lights and low ceilings and not a lot of natural sunlight. And to come into a space like CSI where you have not only tons of other people doing interesting work, we've got lots of natural sunlight, but where we've got lunch and learns and programs and activities and ways to connect with people, sports teams that people can be part of. And you don't have to be. Some people just come and work and go and leave at the end of the day, and that's okay too. But the idea is to try to provide a menu of options for people to find their own voice and their own reason for being there, and that's really what we work on trying to create. This isn't about space, it's about social change. And so our mission as an organization is not to create these shared spaces. Our mission is to foster social change and social innovation. And so for us, the space is just a vehicle for doing that. So our theory of change, which is where I'll end the presentation, very simply, at the base of the pyramid, starting with space, that's the foundation. Physical space, and being conscientious, as I had said earlier, about how to design that space in order to support community, which is the second layer of the pyramid, which is about curating the membership, creating a psychological and a social environment, as well as a physical environment, and really animating and activating that environment that helps the circulation of ideas and the generation of new opportunities and collaboration potential, with the idea that these two pieces in combination create the conditions for innovation. So we see innovation emerge when we are conscientious and effective at focusing on these two other layers of space and community. So we create the conditions for innovation emergence. And I think there might just be one more. That's it. There we go.